Now, Sweden's parliament has voted for new laws giving the government more powers to contain the COVID-19 pandemic. The rules give Stockholm the ability to shut down businesses. For more on this, we're going to go live to Stockholm to speak to Per Bergfors Nyberg. Great to see you there, Pers. Now, Sweden was supposed to be a sort of role model, or sort of painted itself thus at the beginning of the pandemic. What's happened now?
Well, basically, Jack, we're still seeing a major spread of the virus all throughout the society. We had a pretty good summer with very low spread of the virus, and the government just didn't think that we were going to see a second wave. We even heard from the Public Health Agency saying that they anticipated an only sort of smaller local spreading of the virus, which they would be able to contain. But then throughout the rest of Europe, we saw a major spread of the virus, and then that second wave also came to Sweden. And now the government feels that they have to act to try to stop the spread of the virus. We've used so far mostly recommendations that they've been asking people to follow, but now they feel that they need more tools to be able to act more firmly in terms of shutting down businesses, or at least controlling places such as shops, gyms, and telling them how many people can actually gather at these establishments. Now, the Swedish Health Minister, Lena Hallengren, she received a question earlier today at a press conference, and she was asked, is this a major shift in the Swedish strategy? But she said no. Take a listen.
It has been a combination of the voluntary and the legally binding measures to fight the pandemic, and we're continuing with that. This new law gives us new tools to handle the pandemic, which we need because the pandemic is still in full action in the Swedish society as well as in other countries.
So the law was passed by the Swedish Parliament earlier today, and then at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, the Swedish government made a couple of announcements that they, for example, are now going to tell shops to calculate how many people who can gather in these shops. Each visitor in a shop needs to have 10 square meters at its disposal so that they can move around freely without having to interact with anyone else, Jack.
How's this going down with people in Sweden, all of this that's happened in the last day or so?
Well, actually, we've seen a couple of changes here. For example, we now have recommendations in terms of using face masks on public transport. And now this new law, which is quite restrictive when it comes to a country like Sweden. This is unheard of here in Sweden. Before, we only had these recommendations, as I mentioned. But now this new law telling shops how many people who can gather, and they could even move to closing them down. We've also had a major controversy surrounding the Swedish Prime Minister and a couple of ministers in the government who've been out actually shopping in shopping malls, even though they told the government or told the public not to go and visit these shops. Today, the Prime Minister defended going out into the shops, saying, well, I avoided major crowding and I planned for it. But, you know, only a couple of weeks ago, he said, you know, don't come up with any excuses, avoid shops. So I'd say that at the moment, the public is quite confused about what the government wants us to do.
Pers in Stockholm, thanks for your time.